Stuck, stressed, or chasing purpose? What if the secret isn't doing more, but flowing more? Discover how to unlock your true power by living beyond the ego, starting today. Chapter 1. The River of Flow. Understanding the State of Being. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Rumi. What is flow and why does it feel so effortless? Imagine this. You're painting, writing, climbing, or simply walking, and suddenly time melts away. You're not thinking about yourself, not worrying about the past or the future. There's no inner chatter. You are simply doing, and that doing feels like being. That's flow. Flow is a state of full immersion where every action seems to arise effortlessly from the last. It's not about trying harder. In fact, it often comes when we stop trying to control. The self, the part of us that questions, doubts, and plans, seems to dissolve. What's left is pure experience, pure presence. This chapter is about discovering that this state is not rare. It's not reserved for elite athletes or artists. Flow is available to you. And not just occasionally, it can become your natural way of being. The Science of Flow, Optimal Experience. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi devoted his life to understanding this mysterious state. In his groundbreaking research, he identified flow as the optimal experience, the moment when we feel most alive, engaged, and fulfilled. He found that people in flow share similar traits: intense focus, a merging of action and awareness, a loss of self-consciousness, a distortion of time, a sense of effortlessness. Flow doesn't come from passive relaxation. It arises from deep engagement in something that challenges and stretches us just beyond our comfort zone. Flow and the disappearance of the self. One of the most profound aspects of flow is that we lose ourselves, not in a dissociative way, but in a liberating one. In flow, the ego steps aside. The part of the mind constantly narrating, comparing, and controlling takes a break. This is where flow meets the spiritual. It mirrors what many traditions call no self. In the absence of ego, we become fully available to the present moment. We move with life, not against it. Flow becomes a portal to something deeper, our essential self, or even the mystery beyond the self. Real-life stories of flow. The rock climber. On the edge of a cliff, one misstep could be fatal, but the climber doesn't fear. There's no room for it. Every ounce of attention is with the fingertips, the shift of weight, the texture of the rock. Time disappears. The mind is silent. I wasn't climbing, she says later. It was as if the mountain and I were dancing. The musician. In the middle of a concert, a pianist forgets the crowd, the notes, even the instrument. There's only the music. Afterwards, someone asks how they pulled off such an emotional performance. I don't know, they say. I wasn't really there. These are not rare moments. They are clues, reminders of what we're capable of when we surrender to the moment. Reflection and practice. Recall your flow. Think of a time when you were in flow. What were you doing? How did it feel? Were you alone or with others? Did time slow down or disappear? How did you feel afterward? Mindful breathing practice. Try this for just 10 minutes. Sit quietly and bring your attention to your breath. Feel the inhale and the exhale. When thoughts arise, don't fight them, just gently return to the breath. This is a simple way to quiet the ego and practice presence, the gateway to flow. Summary: flow as a path to being. Flow is not just a performance hack, it is a way of being, a glimpse into who we are beneath the noise. It invites us to release the ego's grip and return to the now. In flow, we're not doing life, we're being life. The more we understand it, the more we can live it. Not just in peak moments, but every day. Chapter 2. The Illusion of Self. Who are you really? The self is only a shadow cast by the light of awareness. Nisargadatta Maharaj. Is the self you identify with real? We all carry a story, a name, a background, a list of roles and achievements. You may say, I'm a teacher, a father, an artist, a survivor. But pause and ask, who are you beneath all of that? Is the self you present to the world who you really are? What remains when you stop clinging to the narrative? In this chapter, we explore a radical idea found in many wisdom traditions, that the self you think you are is not the real you. It's a story created by the mind. And this story, beautiful or painful, often becomes the prison that keeps you from experiencing the freedom of flow. The self, a mental construction. In Eastern philosophies like Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, the self is not a fixed identity but a bundle of passing thoughts, memories, and sensations. What we call I is just a pattern, like waves on the ocean. There is no solid entity behind it, just movement, just change. This constructed self, often referred to as the ego, is built from childhood. It absorbs praise, criticism, expectations, and cultural conditioning. It forms around roles: student, leader, lover, victim, achiever. But none of these roles are permanent. They shift like sand. And yet, we cling to them. We defend them. We suffer when they're threatened. Why? Because the ego is afraid of dissolving. But flow, that beautiful state of presence, requires just that, the loosening of the self's grip. Suffering, the cost of self-attachment. Most emotional pain arises not from the events of life, but from the stories we tell about them. When we believe, I must be successful to be worthy, or if I fail, I'm nothing, we trap ourselves in the prison of ego. Flow only happens when we're no longer trying to be someone. It happens when we're simply being. Letting go of the false self isn't self-destruction, it's self-liberation. Real-life stories, moments of no self. The corporate executive. Amid burnout and anxiety, a high-performing executive attends a silent meditation retreat. On the third day, something shifts. I watched my thoughts like clouds, she recalls. I saw how much I believed I was my job, my image, my success. But those were just thoughts. When I let them go, I felt free. She didn't lose herself, she found the space beneath it. The Zen monk. During deep zazen, sitting meditation, a monk describes becoming nothing and everything. There was no me watching the breath, just being. No self is not a loss, he says, it's returning home. These are not mystical anomalies. They're reminders that your true nature isn't something to build, it's something to uncover. Reflection and practice. Self-inquiry exercise. Write down 5 labels you often use to describe yourself. For example, I'm a hard worker, I'm a parent, I'm a failure, I'm a creative, I'm strong. Then reflect. What if this label were taken away? Who am I if I don't identify with that role? Can I still exist fully without these mental definitions? Meditation, observing without identifying. Sit for 5 minutes in silence. Close your eyes. Watch your thoughts arise and pass. Don't follow them. Don't fight them. Just witness. Like clouds in the sky. They are not you. This is the practice of choiceless awareness. Over time, it helps dissolve the illusion of a separate self. The self is not what you think. The self you defend is not solid. It's a collection of memories, emotions, and learned roles. When you begin to loosen your grip on it, a deeper self, spacious, peaceful, and present, begins to shine through. This no self is not a void, but the open field of awareness itself. From here, flow becomes natural. Action becomes effortless. You are no longer a wave crashing through life. You are the ocean, calm, vast, and free. Chapter 3. Surrendering to the current, letting go of control. Surrender to what is, let go of what was. Have faith in what will be. Sonia Rapati. Why do we resist life's flow? We long for peace, yet cling to control. We crave clarity, yet obsessively try to shape the unknown. The paradox is this: our desire to control life often blocks us from living it fully. Flow, that effortless, alive state of being, doesn't emerge from control. It arises from trust, from allowing life to move through you, not around you. So, why do we resist surrender? Because the ego fears unpredictability. It wants certainty, outcomes, and dominance. But control is a myth. The more we try to force life, the more tension we create, in the body, in the mind, and in the soul. Letting go is not giving up. It's giving in to something deeper than the ego. It's entering the current of presence and letting it carry you. The barrier of control, the power of surrender. Trying too hard is one of the most common blocks to flow. When we force outcomes, second-guess ourselves, or micromanage every detail, we disconnect from presence. Flow is born from focus, not force. This is the paradox of effort. When we grip too tightly, we lose grace. When we ease into the moment, action becomes effortless. Surrender is not weakness, it's a deeper kind of strength. It says, I trust this moment, I trust life, I trust myself to respond, not react. Trusting the process, flow as alignment. To surrender is to realign with something greater than the small self. In spiritual terms, this is the no self, the part of us that is not separate from life, but is life. Flow happens when the boundaries between me and the moment dissolve. This merging is not achieved through effort, it happens in allowing. To surrender is to say, I don't need to know the whole path, just the next step. I don't need to force the wave, I'll learn to ride it. I release the need to control, and I open to what is. Real-life stories of surrender. The surfer, says Maya, a lifelong surfer. It's about listening. When I tried to control everything, my stance, my breathing, the ocean, I wiped out every time. When I finally let go and just felt the rhythm of the sea, that's when I became the wave. That's flow. The business owner. Jason ran a startup with a tight grip. He micromanaged every team member, obsessively monitored numbers, and burned out fast. One day, exhausted, he let go. He delegated, trusted his team, and focused on the vision instead of the mechanics. The result? The business grew faster than ever. Surrendering control didn't mean doing nothing, he says. It meant doing the right things, with presence, not panic. Practices for letting go. Let go challenge. Identify one area in your life where you're trying to control the outcome, maybe a relationship, a project, or your image. For one day, commit to letting go. Stop checking for results. Stop trying to fix others. Stop overthinking. Instead, just show up. Do your best, then release. At the end of the day, journal. What changed? How did it feel? Was anything lost or gained? Body scan meditation. Surrender through the body. Lie down or sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Bring awareness to each part of your body, starting at the crown of your head and slowly moving down to your toes. With each area, silently say, I let go. Feel the tension melt. This is a physical metaphor for surrender, reminding your body and mind what it feels like to release. Summary: surrender is the path to flow. Control is an illusion that keeps us stuck. Flow begins when we surrender, not as a retreat, but as a return. A return to trust, a return to now, a return to the self that doesn't need to grip so tightly. When we stop resisting the current, we find we were never separate from it. Letting go is not the end. It is the beginning of being carried by life itself. Chapter 4. The Art of Presence, Anchoring in the Now. The only moment that exists is now. Eckhart Tolle. Why is the present moment so hard to stay in? We live in a world filled with endless distractions, notifications, schedules, memories, anxieties. The body may be here, but the mind is usually somewhere else. It drifts to the past, rewinding regrets, or leaps ahead into imagined futures. Rarely does it rest in now, the only place life truly exists. Yet flow, that deep, fulfilling state of being, can only happen in the now. You cannot enter flow while worrying about what just happened or what might go wrong. Flow demands your full attention, and presence is how you give it. The art of presence is not about escaping life. It's about finally arriving in it. The foundation of flow and no self.
Presence is more than attention. It's an openness, a state of being fully here. When you're present, you're not judging, analyzing, or resisting. You're simply aware. This state is the foundation of both flow and no-self. In flow, action and awareness merge. In no-self, the thinker dissolves and only the thinking remains. In presence, the moment is enough and you become one with it. The ego can't survive in the present. It feeds on time, on stories of what I did or what might happen. When you anchor into now, the ego fades. What remains is clarity, peace, and spontaneous action, the essence of flow. The mind's tendency to escape now. Why do we avoid the now? Because the present often feels too still, too empty, too quiet. The mind is addicted to movement. It constantly seeks stimulation, something to fix, something to fear. Ironically, this chase keeps us disconnected from the very peace we long for. But presence isn't dull, it's alive. It's where you taste food more deeply, hear music more fully, and see the world with fresh eyes. It's where flow is born, not from effort, but from full engagement with what is. Real-life stories of presence and flow. The chef in the kitchen. Carlos, a professional chef, describes losing himself in the rhythm of cooking. When I'm chopping, stirring, plating, I'm not thinking. I am the motion. Time disappears. There's no room for anything else. No past, no future, just flame, flavor, and focus. That's when the food tastes best, when I'm not trying, just being. The mother and the laughter. Amidst a stressful day, Maria sat down and simply watched her daughter giggle as she played with bubbles. For a few minutes, she said, I wasn't planning or worrying. I just listened. Her laugh brought me back. Everything else melted away. That moment healed something in me. Presence doesn't require perfection. It only asks for attention. Training the muscle of presence. 5-minute sensory awareness exercise. Sit or stand still. Take a deep breath. Focus on your sight. What do you see right now? Light, color, texture. Shift to sound. What do you hear? Near, far, subtle. Then touch. What sensations do you feel? Air on skin, clothing, posture. Don't label or judge, just notice. This is presence in action. Practice this daily to build your capacity to stay with the now. Reflection questions. What usually pulls me out of the present moment? Thoughts, devices, emotions? What small daily rituals, walking, brushing teeth, drinking tea, could become anchors of presence if I brought more awareness to them? How can I gently return to now without guilt whenever I notice I've drifted? Summary: presence is the gateway. Flow does not live in the future. Your true self does not dwell in the past. They both wait in the now. The more you practice presence, the more naturally flow arises. You begin to act without overthinking, listen without needing to reply, and live without constantly needing to fix or flee. In presence, ego dissolves, and life is revealed. Simple, sacred, and whole. Chapter 5. Flow in Creativity, Unleashing Your Inner Artist. Creativity is intelligence having fun. Albert Einstein. Why does creativity feel like magic? There's a moment every creator knows. The world fades, time dissolves, and something flows through you. The painting paints itself. The words pour out. The dance becomes the dancer. It feels like magic, because in that moment, you are no longer the thinker or doer. You are the act of creation itself. That is the power of flow in creativity. It reveals that your most brilliant, alive, and inspired self doesn't emerge through force or planning. It awakens when the ego steps aside. Creativity is not something you do, it's something you allow. And flow is the key that unlocks the door. Flow as the heart of creativity. Creativity and flow are inseparable. When you're in flow, you're completely immersed in the act. You stop judging your work and yourself. Ideas seem to come from somewhere deeper or beyond.
This is the essence of no self in creativity. The artist becomes the art. The boundaries between the creator and the creation blur. There's no inner critic, no fear of failure, no need for validation, just pure expression. And ironically, this surrender is what gives birth to your most original, authentic work. Overcoming creative blocks with flow. Creative blocks often come from trying too hard, forcing inspiration, overanalyzing each stroke or sentence, worrying about whether it's good enough. These are symptoms of ego, the part of you that wants to be perfect, praised, or safe. But flow thrives when you let go of control, expectations, and outcomes. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You only need to show up, open the channel, and let go. Flow will find you.
Real-life stories of flow and creative freedom. The painter and the brush. Lena, a visual artist, says her best work happens when she stops trying to create something impressive. When I stop thinking and just move with the color, I disappear into the canvas. I don't know what I'm painting half the time. I just feel. It's like being in love with the moment. The writer and the invisible pen. Jared, a novelist, recalls writing for 6 straight hours one night. I wasn't planning the plot or fixing grammar. The story was writing itself. It felt like I was watching, not composing. When I read it later, I barely remembered typing it. That's when I knew it came from something deeper than me. These moments are not rare gifts. They are natural states of being when we let go and trust the creative current.
Practices to invite creative flow. Free writing or free doodling, 15 minutes. Set a timer. Write or draw without stopping. No editing, erasing, or judging. Let your hand move faster than your thoughts. If stuck, write, "I don't know what to write," until something new emerges. Notice, how does it feel to let go? What came up when you stopped thinking? Reflection questions. What usually blocks my creative flow? Perfectionism, fear, distractions. How can I create space for creativity without pressure? When was the last time I lost track of time while creating, and what helped me enter that state? Summary. Creativity thrives in flow. Your inner artist doesn't need to be found, it needs to be freed. Flow is the doorway. It invites you to step beyond judgment, beyond ego, and into the joy of creation. In flow, the self dissolves. What remains is raw, vibrant presence, and from that, true creativity arises. Not because you made it happen, but because you got out of the way. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. Let the art come through.
Chapter 6. Flow in Relationships, Connecting Beyond the Self. Love is the absence of judgment. Dalai Lama. Can we love without ego? Relationships often mirror our deepest fears and desires. We seek love, but sometimes cling. We crave connection, but often judge or defend. Why? Because our ego, the small self, wants to protect, to be right, to be seen. But what if love didn't require performance, control, or roles? What if the deepest connection came not from trying harder, but from simply being present? This is where flow meets relationship, a space where ego softens, presence deepens, and love becomes a shared experience of truth. Flow in relationships, the power of presence. We usually associate flow with solo pursuits, art, sports, writing, but flow also happens between people. In moments of deep connection, time disappears, words come effortlessly, silences feel rich, not awkward. This happens when both people are fully present, not thinking about the next thing to say, not distracted or defensive, just here. Flow in relationships arises when we listen without interrupting or fixing. We respond from empathy, not ego. We let go of needing to be right or understood. Presence becomes a bridge, and across it, real love walks in. No self in love, beyond roles and expectations. In most relationships, we unknowingly wear masks. The helpful partner, the tough parent, the needy child, the smart friend. These roles may feel familiar, but they're still performances. True intimacy requires that we step out of character and into authenticity. In flow, there is no me and you, just the space between us, a shared now. Love, in its purest form, arises not from holding on, but from letting go.
Real-life stories of relational flow. The couple in conversation. During a difficult but heartfelt conversation, Sophia and Amir sat without distractions, phones off, eyes soft. "We weren't arguing or planning," Sophia recalled. "We just talked, really talked. No interruptions, no defenses. It felt like the world disappeared, and we were floating together in the moment." That was flow, born not from agreement, but from presence. The therapist who let go of expertise. Dr. Eleanor, a seasoned therapist, found her most profound session happened when she let go of her techniques. "I stopped analyzing and just felt with my client. I wasn't the expert anymore, just a human, fully present." That's when he finally cried. Something real opened. Sometimes connection isn't in the answer, it's in the space.
Practices for relational flow. 10-minute active listening practice. Choose a friend, partner, or colleague. Set a timer for 10 minutes. One person speaks about anything they wish, a feeling, a memory, a hope. The other listens fully, no interrupting, no advice, just open presence. Afterward, switch roles or reflect on how it felt. This builds the muscle of presence without agenda, a core ingredient in flow. Reflection questions. How does my ego show up in relationships? Do I try to be right? Do I crave approval or avoid discomfort? Do I judge or expect? How would it feel to meet someone without roles, just as I am? Flow is love without self. Flow in relationships isn't just about harmony, it's about honesty without ego. It arises when both people choose presence over protection, empathy over performance. By surrendering our masks, we create space for something more beautiful, real connection. In that space, the small self fades, and a deeper love, one that isn't bound by expectation or fear, begins to flow. Flow in love isn't about finding the right person, it's about being the right presence. Chapter 7. Flow in work, finding purpose in action. Choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. Confucius. Can work feel like play? For many, work is a grind, a series of tasks, deadlines, and pressures. But there are moments, however fleeting, when work becomes something else. Time fades, focus sharpens, energy rises. You feel alive, not because you're escaping work, but because you're in it. That's flow. Flow at work isn't about having a dream job or escaping responsibility. It's about shifting how we show up, from stress to presence, from outcome-driven to process-inspired. Work becomes play with purpose. The result? More creativity, more fulfillment, less burnout, and a deeper sense of meaning in what we do. Flow at work, where skill meets challenge. Flow at work happens in the sweet spot, where your skills are stretched just enough to stay fully engaged, but not overwhelmed. You're not bored, you're not anxious, you're in the zone. This happens when three forces align. Skill, you know what you're doing. Challenge, it's difficult enough to demand your full attention. Passion, you care, not because of rewards, but because it matters to you. In this space, work becomes a space of expression. You lose the need to prove yourself. You become absorbed in the task, and ironically, you often perform better than when trying to control the outcome. No self in work, doing without ego. In flow, the ego quiets. You stop worrying about recognition, promotion, or perfection. You're not working, you're creating, serving, building. Action flows through you, not from a place of pressure, but presence. This is the essence of no self at work. You're not the teacher, you're teaching. You're not the leader, you're leading. You're not obsessed with being great, you're simply doing great work. Letting go of attachment to outcomes doesn't mean you don't care. It means your joy isn't held hostage by results. You find meaning in the doing, not just the having. Real-life stories of flow at work. The teacher in the moment. Mr. Lin, a high school teacher, shared that his best classes happen when he forgets the lesson plan. When I really see my students, when I'm fully there with them, something shifts. I stop thinking about the clock. Ideas come on the fly. The classroom becomes alive. That's when teaching feels like flying. The entrepreneur in crisis. During a major product failure, Neela, a tech startup founder, was expected to panic. Oddly, I felt calm. I dropped into focus. We weren't solving the crisis for applause, we just had to solve it. We prototyped a new system in 48 hours. I realized later that was flow. My ego was gone. All that mattered was the work. Practical exercises to invite flow into work. Identify your flow tasks. Think of one task or project where you naturally lose track of time. What makes it engaging? Challenge, creativity, autonomy? How can you design more of your work around that kind of task? Ego reflection. Ask yourself, where am I working for approval rather than purpose? What would shift if I let go of needing credit or control? Journal your insights. Let them guide your next decision. Summary. Work as a flow-based contribution. Flow transforms work from obligation to offering. It's not just about what you achieve, but how you show up. When you work with presence, with no self, you stop chasing meaning and start creating it. The ego may chase success, but the true self finds joy in contribution, and that joy is the seed of sustainable, fulfilling work. In flow, work becomes more than a job. It becomes a path of growth, purpose, and play.
Chapter 8. Obstacles to Flow, Navigating Inner Resistance. The obstacle is the path, Zen proverb. Why do we sabotage our own flow? Flow feels natural, even effortless, so why is it often so difficult to enter or sustain? The answer lies within: fear, doubt, distraction, and ego-based resistance. These are not flaws in our character, they are habits of the mind, designed to protect us but which often hold us back from fully living, creating, and connecting. We all carry invisible walls. Flow asks us to walk through them, not with force, but with awareness. The hidden barriers to flow. Before we can move through resistance, we must learn to recognize it. Flow is blocked not by external obstacles, but by internal noise. Fear. Fear of failure, rejection, judgment, or even success can freeze us. The mind whispers, "What if you're not enough?" Overthinking. Too much analysis creates paralysis. The flow state requires letting go, but the ego demands control. Perfectionism. Wanting to do it just right prevents us from doing it at all. The need to appear flawless kills the freedom flow needs to breathe. These are strategies of the ego, which thrives on self-protection and image. Flow, however, emerges when the ego loosens its grip. The ego and resistance to no-self. The ego fears dissolution. In flow and no-self states, identity softens, control dissolves, and a deeper intelligence moves through us. This threatens the ego's illusion of being in charge. So it fights back through self-doubt, distractions, procrastination, or inner criticism. But here's the secret: resistance is a doorway. Not something to eliminate, but something to witness and move through. Resistance points to where we are growing. It shows us the edges of our self-constructed limitations. And every time we choose awareness over fear, presence over perfection, we weaken the ego's hold and return to flow. Real-life stories of overcoming resistance. The athlete and the process. Jasmine, a competitive sprinter, used to crumble before races. "I was so afraid of failing that I'd choke," she said. "Then my coach told me, forget the win, just run your run." She began focusing only on her breath, stride, and rhythm. Over time, anxiety faded, not because it disappeared, but because she stopped giving it power. "Now I don't try to win, I just run, and that's when I actually do win." The meditator and the fear within.
During a silent retreat, Dev faced deep fear during meditation. Old memories, anxiety, a tight chest. "I wanted to get up and escape," he said, "but I stayed." By breathing and watching, the fear began to dissolve. Suddenly, the fear was just sensation, not me, and behind it was this stillness, peaceful, vast. I felt no self for the first time. His greatest resistance had become his greatest teacher. Tools for navigating inner resistance. Write a compassionate letter to yourself. Identify one recurring obstacle, fear of judgment, procrastination. Write a letter to yourself from the voice of compassion. Acknowledge the pain or fear. Affirm your worth and strength. Encourage small, gentle steps toward flow. This exercise helps you step out of judgment and into presence. 5-minute resistance meditation. Sit quietly and close your eyes. Notice where resistance lives, in your body, mind, or emotions. Don't push it away, don't analyze. Simply breathe with it. Say silently, "You are welcome here." Watch as it changes, shifts, or softens. Summary: resistance is not the enemy. Flow is not the absence of resistance, it is the awareness of it. When we stop fighting and start witnessing, resistance transforms from a wall to a doorway. Each obstacle becomes a chance to see where ego still holds on, and where we are ready to let go. Every moment of inner struggle contains an invitation. Stay present, be kind, keep moving. And in that steady return to presence, flow finds its way back, not as something we force, but as something we become. Chapter 9. Flow in Crisis, Finding Peace Amid Chaos. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. Can we find flow in life's darkest moments? Flow is often associated with joy, the artist lost in creation, the athlete in motion, the musician in harmony. But what about suffering? Can flow still reach us in pain, loss, uncertainty? The answer is yes, and perhaps it's never more powerful than in crisis. When life unravels, the ego panics, clings, resists. It cries out, "Why me? What now? This shouldn't be happening." But in the depth of that chaos, there's a deeper part of us, beyond identity, beyond fear, that knows how to let go, how to surrender, how to flow with what is. This is the beginning of inner resilience, not the absence of hardship, but the discovery of a self that cannot be shaken by it. Flow as resilience in times of challenge. Crisis demands presence. When everything familiar is stripped away, what's left is raw awareness, a moment-by-moment unfolding where we either resist or respond. Flow doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means entering life so fully, even the hard parts, that something shifts. We stop grasping for escape and start moving with the storm. We stop narrating the suffering and start breathing into it. This presence, this full attention, doesn't make pain vanish, but it transforms our relationship with it. We find strength not from control, but from surrender. No self in crisis, letting go of the victim identity. One of the ego's strongest attachments during crisis is the victim identity, the story that says, "I am what has happened to me." While suffering is real, identification with it magnifies pain. The ego clings to the narrative of injustice, fear, or defeat because it gives it shape, meaning, and identity. But flow and the experience of no self invite us to step beyond that story. No self says, "This is happening, but it's not who I am. I am not my pain. I am the awareness holding it." Even in loss, there is life. Even in chaos, there is clarity. This shift doesn't deny hardship. It transcends it, not through avoidance, but through presence. Real-life stories, finding flow in crisis. The cancer survivor and the practice of gratitude.
Elena, diagnosed with stage 3 cancer at 42, began treatment with fear and despair. At first, I couldn't stop thinking, "Why me?" she shared. But a nurse suggested I write down 3 things I was grateful for every day, even if they were small. She started: the warmth of the sun, the taste of soup, a kind smile from her daughter. Something changed. I began to live more in the now. Treatment days became meditative. I was in flow, not with something pleasant, but with something real. The refugee and the breath of presence. Aman, a refugee displaced by war, found himself in a crowded camp far from home. I was full of rage, grief, and helplessness, he said. But one day, a volunteer taught me to meditate. Just breathe and listen. He began practicing each morning. I couldn't change my situation, but I could change how I met it. Every breath became a moment of peace. I remembered I was still here. That saved me. His suffering didn't vanish, but he discovered a space of stillness within it. Practices to bring flow into difficult moments. Reflective inquiry on past crisis. Choose a past moment of personal crisis. Ask yourself, where was I resisting what was happening? Was there a moment where presence or acceptance could have shifted my experience? What did I learn from it that still lives in me today? This reflection helps you see suffering not as failure, but as a teacher. Gratitude exercise, daily practice. Each morning or evening, list 3 things you are grateful for. They don't need to be big: a breeze, a smile, a warm drink. Feel each one as deeply as you can. Let the feeling grow. Gratitude gently shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. That shift is where flow can begin. Summary: crisis as a gateway to true presence. Crisis strips away what doesn't matter. What's left is the now, bare, brutal, and beautiful. In this space, flow becomes a lifeline. Presence becomes a refuge, and no self becomes liberation. You are not the storm. You are the sky it moves through. By meeting chaos with awareness and pain with compassion, we open ourselves to a deeper truth, that even in the darkest winter, there is an invincible summer waiting quietly within us. Chapter 10. The True Self, Living in Flow Every Day. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. What is the true self? We spend much of life trying to become someone: successful, likable, smart, spiritual, strong. But beneath all that striving, a quieter truth waits patiently. Not something to become, but something to remember. This is the true self, not a personality or performance, but presence, the awareness behind the roles, thoughts, and emotions. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't fear change. It simply is. And the more we live in flow, the more this true self shines through, effortlessly, joyfully, and authentically. Living in flow, making presence a daily practice. Flow is not limited to peak experiences. It's not just for athletes, artists, or mystics. It's available in the ordinary. Brushing your teeth, walking the dog, washing dishes. The key is presence. Living in flow means showing up fully to each moment, even the mundane ones. Releasing attachment to how things should be. Trusting the rhythm of life, even when it's uncertain. The more we practice presence, the more life becomes the practice. The lifelong journey of no self and flow. Integrating flow and no self into daily life isn't a one-time achievement. It's a returning again and again. Returning from thought to breath, from resistance to surrender, from ego to awareness. It's not about escaping challenges, but meeting them with less friction. Over time, we stop trying to control everything and start dancing with what is. We stop performing and start being. This is how we begin to live the flow, not just experience it. Real-life stories of daily flow. The retiree and the garden. After retiring, David struggled with a loss of identity. "I didn't know who I was without my job," he admitted. Then he began tending a small garden.
It started as a hobby, but something shifted. When I'm with the plants, I forget time. I feel peaceful, grounded. I'm not trying to be anyone, I'm just there. He realized flow wasn't about achievement, it was about attention. The yogi and the path of presence. Amina, a yoga teacher, speaks of integrating flow and no-self into every breath. I used to think awakening meant escaping life. Now I see it's about embodying it, fully, even in traffic, in conversations, in silence. Through movement, meditation, and mindfulness, she found that the true self isn't hidden. It's always here, beneath the noise.
Practices to anchor flow in daily life. Create a daily flow ritual. Choose a simple practice to return to presence. Examples: 10 minutes of mindful breathing, free writing or journaling each morning, a daily walk without your phone, yoga or mindful movement. Commit to it for 7 days. Notice how it shifts your awareness and energy. Reflection questions. When today did I feel most present or at peace? What daily task can I turn into a moment of flow? How does living in flow change how I see myself? Summary. Flow reveals the true self. The true self is not something to build. It's what's revealed when the ego quiets and presence rises. Flow helps us return to this self again and again until it no longer feels like a state but a way of being. By living in flow, even in small moments, we stop chasing and start arriving. We stop becoming and start being. And in that space, we discover that joy, peace, and purpose were never somewhere else. They've been waiting right here, in the now, in the breath, the step, the silence, the smile. This is your invitation to live from that space, not as an idea, but as a practice. Not someday, but today. Final note: flow is not a destination. It is your nature. Keep returning to the present. That's where your true self lives, wild, free, and fully alive.